Hello, everyone. Welcome back to 3 News Now. It's Tuesday, August 11th. I'm Stephanie Haney. Thank you for joining us here. I appreciate you choosing to be here to get filled in on everything you need to know in Northeast Ohio with the top headlines from WKYC.com and our WKYC app. We have quite the lineup for you today. Today, we're going to take a look at what to expect from Governor Mike DeWine's press conference today, as well as new news that Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse will be a polling location for the November 3rd election. Also, we're going to take a look at the fact that it's 12 weeks to Election Day. That's 84 days, and talk a little bit about voting by mail and what might be particularly unique about this year's presidential election. Also, we'll talk more about that reported Big Ten vote and what we expect to hear today from the conference related to a 2020 football season. Some new news about pitcher Mike Clevinger, who is also out after violating COVID-19 protocol, just as manager Terry Francona is back with the Cleveland baseball team today here in Cleveland. And we'll take a look at how METALLICA is coming to Northeast Ohio. Sort of, in the way that you can bring a show to Northeast Ohio when we're dealing with a pandemic. And then we have a very special welcome of a brand new member of the 3 News family that we'll get to at the very end. We'll definitely end things on the right note with that today. First up, we'll talk about what we can expect to see from Governor Mike DeWine's press conference today. It's expected to be focused on back-to-school information when he has that briefing at 2 p.m., focusing on education and the return to schools. In addition to Governor Mike DeWine speaking and Lieutenant Governor John Husted, we're also expected to hear from multiple doctors from children's hospitals speaking today. We also expect to hear more about COVID-19 testing concerns. If you remember, last week there was a scare when Governor Mike DeWine tested positive using a rapid COVID-19 test, but then when he was retested and that test was run twice out of the Ohio State Wexner Medical Center using a PRC COVID-19 test, which is the test that's been used predominantly here in the state of Ohio, those results came back negative twice. So this incident has led to concerns for people on the reliability of testing and the different types of testing. So we can expect to hear more about that today from Governor Mike DeWine as well. There's a question of whether we will hear about sports today. Possibly today. That might also be Tuesday. Governor Mike DeWine said we would hear more about sports this week. Of course, that conversation is all happening against the backdrop of what's happening with college sports, while high schools try and figure out what to do with their fall sports programs. Lots of mixed messaging going on there. So we might hear from Governor Mike DeWine on that today, but also possibly on Thursday. Here's something that we did learn today. Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse will be a polling location for the November 3rd election. This is something that leadership of the Cleveland Cavaliers had been talking about when they were talking about ways to promote social justice. And Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, obviously, has a lot of space inside. And in a time when we're talking about the safety of in-person voting when it comes to COVID-19, when usually voting takes place at schools and churches, which are a lot smaller than the inside of Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, this is a pretty important development for the city of Cleveland and Cuyahoga County. Now, you have to be registered and reside to vote in precincts I, L, or Q in Cleveland's Ward 3 in order to cast your vote at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. This is according to local designated voting location rules. Now, there's a full precinct locator. If you're not sure what precinct you reside in, we have that linked for you on WKYC.com so you can check that out. We do also know that Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse will host the Nonpartisan National Voter Registration Day on Tuesday, September 22nd. Leadership related to Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse did say that voter registration is an obstacle for people when it comes to voting, and so they wanted to be a part of this as well. Now, the voter registration event, which is on Tuesday, September 22nd, will be open to voters that live anywhere in Cuyahoga County. You don't have to live in those specific precincts in Ward 3 in order to go there to register to vote. So that's regardless of your polling location. If you're a Cuyahoga County restaurant, you can register to vote in person on Tuesday, September 22nd at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Now let's talk a little bit more about mail-in voting. We are now 84 days out from the election. That is 12 weeks with the election happening on November 3rd. The Ohio Secretary of State has told me that we expect up to half of all registered voters in Ohio to vote by mail this year. That's double what we typically see in a presidential election, according to the Ohio Secretary of State's office. Here's what else. Ballots in the state of Ohio can arrive up until November 13th if you send them vote by mail, as long as they're postmarked by November 2nd. So what that means is that could result in delayed results for the election. And delayed results from Ohio could have national implications because, as you may well be aware, Ohio has voted for the president in every election since 1960. In 1960, JFK won without winning Ohio, but in every single election since 1944, actually, the winner of Ohio has gone on to win the presidency. So what happens here is a pretty big deal on a national level. Now, this is all happening against the backdrop of the United States Postal Service in the middle of a restructuring right now. There was a new Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, appointed in May, and there have been sweeping changes that have been happening at the post office. There's a hiring freeze right now. There's no overtime pay happening right now. And so what that includes is mail being left behind if it can't be delivered during regular working hours. If delivering mail would cause someone to go into overtime, that mail is being left behind for the next day. Congress people on both sides of the aisle are taking issue with some of the things that are happening at the U.S. Postal Service right now. U.S. House Representative Carolyn Maloney, who is a Democrat from New York, she chairs the House Oversight and Reform Committee. Here's what she said. The middle of a once-in-a-century pandemic with a national election around the corner is not the time to institute a major reorganization of the Postal Service. This comes on top of the operational changes that are already causing severe mail delays across the country. I call upon the Postmaster General to halt these changes now. Well, he's moving forward with these changes. So here's what you can do if you plan to vote by mail and you're concerned about making sure that your ballot gets back in time. Send that ballot back as soon as possible. Just because you can wait until November 2nd to get that ballot postmarked doesn't mean that's the best course of action. Also, if you decide that you'd like to vote by mail here in Ohio, you also have the option of dropping that ballot off in person at your county board of elections. I also break this down in the latest Legally Speaking segment, which you can find on WKYC.com, and that lets you know why we might have a delay in election results this year and why you shouldn't necessarily be concerned if that's the case, because there have been a lot of accusations being thrown out about voter fraud related to mail-in voting. Also, by the way, in Ohio, there's no difference between absentee voting and mail-in voting. Anyone can do it. You don't need a reason to do it, and it's all verified exactly the same way. So keep that in mind. Now, speaking of voting, there has been a lot of conversation about the Big Ten and whether it voted to cancel the 2020 football season. According to ESPN, the Big Ten's university presidents were scheduled to meet at 10:30 this morning and hold a vote regarding the upcoming football season. Some of the things that were supposed to be on the table were potentially pushing the season back to September 26th, or even postponing it to the spring. That's what the MAC has done. The MAC has decided to postpone fall sports, including football, to the spring with the hope that COVID-19 trends improve by then. Yesterday, the Detroit Free Press reported that the Big Ten presidents had already voted 12-2 to cancel the season. Now, a Big Ten spokesperson denied that the vote had already taken place, but lots of people commented on this. The President of the United States, President Donald Trump, says he wants to see its season take place. U.S. Senator Ben Sasse wrote a letter to the Big Ten saying that it would actually be safer for them to hold football for the players involved, many of them who might be in difficult situations without access to health care if they're not playing on a team, if they don't have that structure as well. Ohio State University players weighed in. They said they want to play. They want to do it safely. Even last year's number 1 NFL draft pick, Joe Burrow, weighed in. He said that he hopes the players' voices are heard and that if this had happened a year ago, he might be looking for a job right now. Well, that is definitely a valid point, but when we take a look at what's happening in other professional sports where professional athletes are not following COVID-19 safety protocols, a lot of people also said it would be virtually impossible to get college student athletes to follow these safety protocols. And we also have to remember that these players don't exist in a vacuum. There are other students involved. They will have access to other students, interaction with other students. So it's not like the players themselves can be self-contained in their own bubble. There's a whole university to think about. It's not just the sports at play. So hopefully we will have more on this afternoon. And if so, we'll have that update for you at 3 p.m. in 3 News Now. So make sure you join us then for the latest on what's happening with that Big Ten 2020 football situation. But speaking of those athletes that are professional athletes that haven't been able to follow the COVID-19 safety protocols, we have now learned that Cleveland pitcher Mike Clevinger will also be quarantining after breaking COVID-19 safety protocols in Chicago over the weekend. Multiple reports say that Clevinger was out in Chicago with fellow pitcher Zach Plesac after the game on Saturday night against the White Sox. Now, Plesac was put into a car and sent home. Clevinger was not. He was not forthcoming about the fact that he was out with Plesac, and he took part in a team meeting about the Plesac situation. This is according to ESPN, and defended Plesac before it was made public that Clevinger was reportedly actually with him. Now, last month, Clevinger was talking about holding each other accountable for these COVID-19 safety protocols. He told The Athletic that this isn't going to be a, quote, run to daddy kind of thing. He said just having that trust in your teammates is a big thing. It's a big thing on the field. If you feel your teammate doesn't trust you off the field, how are you going to feel like he trusts you when you get between the lines? He says we're going to handle it in-house. It's a player discipline thing. Keep the coaches and front office kind of out of it. Well, Clevinger definitely was not walking the walk when it comes to those things that he said, because he was not honest, and he exposed his teammates to COVID-19 by not being honest about being out with Plesac, potentially exposed his teammates to COVID-19 if he were to have contracted COVID-19. Now, we don't know that anyone has actually tested positive for COVID-19, but we do know that they've broken the protocols. They were not supposed to leave the hotel. They did. They went out after that game on Saturday night in Chicago. Well, Clevinger flew home, and with him was fellow starting pitcher Carlos Carrasco, who has been completing treatment for leukemia, which makes him more vulnerable to COVID-19. He is one of the people who is considered at a higher risk. Someone else who is considered at a higher risk, who actually was not in Chicago but will be rejoining the team today, manager Terry Francona, because of his age and his recent health issues. Now, he'll be back with the team today in Cleveland. He's been out for more than a week dealing with gastrointestinal issues that have been bothering him since spring. He's missed 8 games in this shortened season. He did skip the trip to Chicago, but he will be back with the team tonight when they take on the Chicago Cubs here in Cleveland. Now, for Plesac being out and needing to quarantine, he was supposed to be out of the pitching rotation this week with a couple of days off for Cleveland, but Clevinger was supposed to start. So now Adam Plutko will be starting in place of Clevinger tonight when Cleveland takes on the Cubs at Progressive Field. That starts tonight at 7:10 p.m. and also includes tomorrow. And now we're told that they will be quarantining, and the protocols do require that they both test negative for COVID-19 twice before they're able to rejoin the team. But definitely a lot of people disappointed in what's been happening there, especially given Clevinger's recent comments about the team accountability issue. Here is some exciting news. Metallica is kind of coming to Northeast Ohio in the way that you can come to Northeast Ohio and put on a show in a pandemic. They've actually been pre-recording a concert, and they're going to show it at drive-ins across Northeast Ohio and across the country. So this will be on August 29th. It will be at 6 different drive-in theaters here in Northeast Ohio. This is part of the Encore Drive-In Nights concert series, and Metallica will be the first rock band featured in the concert series. This will also be Metallica's first show in almost a year. Their most recent show, S&M 2, was a live show that was filmed last year with the San Francisco Symphony. Now, if you want tickets to the concert that will be at the drive-ins on August 29th, those go on sale this Friday for general admission. Every single ticket gets 1 car in with up to 6 people, and it also includes 4 downloads of S&M 2, that concert with the San Francisco Symphony. So the drive-ins that are playing this here in Ohio are in Wadsworth, Warren, Barberton, Chardon, Mansfield, and Norwalk, and we have those all linked on WKYC.com so you can see exactly where it will be playing. And one last piece of news for you today. We have very exciting news to share. Our 3 News digital executive producer Ryan HAIDET and his wife LEAH have welcomed a baby daughter, Dylan May. She was born on Saturday at 9:54 p.m. She was 12 and a half inches tall when she was born, and she weighed 6 pounds and 12 ounces, and she is a pure bundle of joy for them. Now, Ryan is our go-to Cedar Point reporter, and he does the very tough job of checking out those new rides when they open up at Cedar Point. We have a lot of that on WKYC.com. You definitely want to check that out. We know that Ryan is counting down the days until Dylan May is 4 feet tall and she can join him on the Millennium Force, and we are very much looking forward to that. The time is definitely going to fly. Congratulations to Ryan and LEAH, and welcome to baby Dylan May. That's it for your 3 News Now early update for Tuesday, August 11th. I'll be back here at 3 p.m. when we get those new numbers in from the Ohio Department of Health, and also updating you on everything else that are the top stories on WKYC.com and our WKYC app. I will see you back here in a bit. I'm Stephanie Haney.